Yay. So, welcome to you all. And we are on the last session today for this semester, which means we're halfway through the Hebrew alphabet. And we've done Alef-Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Het, Tet, Yod, and now we're at Kaf, or Kuf, as some people might say it, but there's another letter that is actually called Kuf. So that's why we tend to call this one Kaf. There's these very slight differences in vowels, and if I've got time at the end, I will do some of the vowel sounds. This is Kaf, letter, Kaf, either with a K or a C in English, it doesn't matter. It's the 11th letter of the Hebrew alphabet, but its numerical value is 20. Last time we did Yod, which is the 10th letter, and it's the first two-digit letter, 1 and 0. And now we're going to go through all the letters for a while that go 2, 0, 3, 0, 4, 0, 20, 30, 40, 50. I know people don't think of it as 2, 0, but it has the numerical value of 20, which is confusing for people, but that's how counting is done in Hebrew. It sounds like a K, K, if it's got the dagesh, that dot in it, but it sounds like Ch if it hasn't got the dagesh. And its basic meaning, as I'll explain as we go along a bit more, can mean a palm of the hand, a spoon, or a crown. Interesting combinations of possibilities. The design, what it looks like, can perhaps be described as a pipe bent into two places. The concept of bending oneself is a big concept here. It represents submission to a greater force and entity, the King of all kings, God. So it's got this bent look to it, this pipe bent look. In the Torah scrolls, you'll see it with a slight elevation crown on it in the more beautiful way of writing it by a scribe rather than just the everyday writing and printing with it. And it's got this little crown on its roof, and that's quite an interesting one. Kaf is the first one that we're talking about that has two different forms, shapes. Not just a dagesh, that it can have a dagesh dot in it or not, but it has a different version when it appears at the end of a letter. So the spoon-shaped one is at the start of the letter, and it can be at the start of a word. It can be with the dot, k, or without the dot, ch. But the elongated form is what is called the sofit, the final ending version. So if a word has a k, a kaf at the end of it, the kaf doesn't look like that round shape. It becomes this elongated shape. We're not sure why that some of the letters have this, what's called the sofit, this final form of it. We think it might help with punctuation because there aren't full stops and commas and stuff as such in Hebrew. There's been a few things added into it to make it a bit easier nowadays, but there might have been something to do with telling you when to end a word. But it's only on some letters that there are a final version. And so the k with a dot has this kid sound, kid. Without it, it's got a ch sound, and that's for both the kaf at the beginning of a word and the kaf at the end of a word. So we'll look at some other letters gradually that have sofit in it. Kaf words, kaf can mean the palm of a hand, a kaf. It can mean sincerity or intention. We often talk about when you go to pray or when you go to do something, you should have an intention, a focus, a sincerity about it. And that's called kavana, with a k as well. A cup is a kos, also begins, has a cup shape. The kos is a kaf shape, I suppose. It's also a word meaning all, kol. There are two very similar sounding words. This is with a kaf. Kol with a kuf means voice. So you will hear kol and kol. It's very hard to distinguish whether it's the kaf one or the kuf one. It's context at that one. But this means all. And I suppose a good way of thinking about it or remembering it is this sort of surrounding type shape to the kaf. It's got this cup shape. It's containing all sort of thing. That might help you remember which one's which. It also comes at the start of the word keter, which means crown, and it's one of the sephirot that we'll talk about in a second. And that very, very well-known word kosher is spelt with a kaf. So if a food is kosher, we talk about lots of things if it's kosher. Kosher means separated, really, and it means separated from what's allowed and what's not allowed, permitted, not permitted. It's not separated from good and bad. It's just what's allowed. There's nothing inherently bad in pigs or shellfish. It's just they're not for eating. It's to do with the sparks, and I translate that into biology as the enzymes that you have for digestion. It's that sort of idea. There's some sparks you can release that will be useful for you, and sparks that are so bound up to the thing that contains them, the pig or the shrimp or whatever, that you can't release them. That's the basis of, we think, of kosher. We have no particular understanding of it. It's not really explained why some animals are and some animals aren't. And so we've had to come up with trying to explain it. It's also one of the most common words you'll hear. Ken means yes. Lo means no. Ken, yes, yes, yes. Please God, people say yes to you. Most children apparently hear the word no as the main word they hear in their childhood. What does kaf, the letter, symbolize? It comes from a root word, a shoresh. And in Hebrew, we talk about root words, the root of a word. They're usually 3 consonants, sometimes 2, sometimes more, but it's usually 3 consonants that form the root of a word. And for kaf, it comes from a root kafar, and we've added in those vowels, kafar, meaning to bend or bow down. And it suggests that concave shape that the kaf has. The shape of the body or the shape of the crown on a king's head also has that cup-like container to it. Kaf, as it said, begins the word kavana, which means spiritual focus and concentration. Kavana, the shorish, the root of it, means to aim. So it's very much about focusing and intention. It's the sort of thing you do when you're meditating. You have kavana. So it's a word that comes up a lot in mindfulness practices nowadays, having that focus, that aim. It's also, as I said, means spoon. Kafaf means to bend, and kaf comes from that as well, kafaf. And represents an aspect of submitting oneself to a greater power. Then this notion of submission and humility can also be seen in the difference between the words anochi and ani, and both of them mean I. But interestingly, lots of times ani comes up, I. It's the normal way you say I, is ani. But at the start, when God starts telling us the 10 Commandments, he says anochi. And that's an interesting use of the word I, because it's a very unusual one. It's a very biblical and unusual one. And so the explanation goes, when a person walks around all day and says, I, you know, it's all about me and back to me. You're having a conversation about somebody, something important, and they change it back to them. I. They've got a lot of problem with their egotism. And egos are not a bad thing. Everyone needs an ego, but it can get out of hand. So how does one overcome this self-inflation? By adding this kaf, this bending over letter into it. It transforms the ani into the anochi. You have the ch at the end. Not at the end, because otherwise it would be a suffix. So it's anochi. I'm bending over. It's not quite the same I. So when I submits to God, when it recognizes and bends to the higher power through the kaf, it's no longer the egotistical I. Rather, it's more the anochi I that serves as a channel to do God's will. And it's very interesting that God uses that word to us. We're in a relationship, and the kaf makes that sort of container shape that we're both bending over to each other to have this relationship. Kaf also starts the word keter, crown, and in Kabbalah, the sephirot or faculty of keter is the first. It's right at the top of those images I've shown you of the sephirot, and it represents a level that is actually beyond the intellect, because the next three ones are wisdom and understanding and knowing. The next three sephirot, and so keter is actually above that, and like the crown is placed on top of your head. And of course, our head is the vessel that carries the brain, the seat of intellect and thought, that we get all the chokhmah and bina and that knowing and understanding and wisdom from into our brain. But the crown rests above the head. It's beyond thought. And so what can be greater than intellect? Probably desire, a desire for God, a desire for understanding, a desire for being in the presence. And in Hebrew, this word for desire is called ratzon. It's a very, very mighty force, inviting us to explore possibilities, that those rational thoughts that we have of understanding, bina and dat, and knowledge, all gets sublimated to this desire to be in the presence, to get it. The kaf also comes up as grammar ideas. It can, like b, I said the bait can be added to a beginning of the word to mean in or on. Bait meaning a house, bait meaning in a house. So the same with kaf. You can add it before a word, and it means like something, as something. Kamelech, like a king. You can also have it as a suffix. Sorry, I got this slide almost twice. It can be representing like or as, but it can also be added to the end of a word as a suffix at the end of the word. And obviously then it tends to be the kaf sufit, the final form of the kaf. Instead of this bent round form, it's this elongated form. And then the vowels get placed inside the letter. This is a very unusual thing where with the sufit form of the kaf, the final form of the kaf, the vowels are placed inside the letter. And so if they change obviously with gender, and the example here is ahavate ha, meaning a masculine, I love to you, your love is, it's from a masculine person. So the ha means you masculine at the end of a word. So I can add on the ha onto lots of words, and meaning you, I'm talking to you, and I'm pointing to you, a man. But if I'm pointing to you, a woman, it's just ha, not ha with a this vowel in it, just ha. So mashem ha is what's your name in masculine. Hello, Fred. What's hello, you masculine. What's your name? Mashem ha. But then you're saying it to a woman, it's ma shemech. It's just a ch. It's quite difficult for a lot of English speakers to say, but it's just shemech, to you, a woman. What's your name as a woman? So it's the final version of the kaf, but it can take on a masculine or feminine, because Hebrew is a gendered language like French, il and el. So here we've got ha and ch. So that's it as a grammar. The gematria of it is, as I said, 20. It's the kaf sufit, the final version form, that elongated form, actually represents 500, but it's very, very rarely used, as it people just don't use the sufit so much as counting. They tend to use two different numbers together to get to 500, and it happens to be 400 plus 100. Tab and kof we'll get to later. So we tend to always think of the kaf in its round cup-like form, not as its final form. And the gematria of that's 20. And 20 is obviously 2 10s. And the first 10 represents the 10 utterances with which God created the world. And the second 10 represents the 10 commandments. And together they become a kaf. In Numbers, it says 10 and 10 is the kaf. There's a quote in the book of Numbers. So that's quite an interesting idea, that it's talking about the 10 utterances with which God creates the world. Let there be light, let there be this, let there be that, whatever, which we'll come to in a second again. And also, obviously, the 10 commandments. If you take the word for 20, Ezrim is the word for 20 in Hebrew, and add up its letters, you arrive at 620. The letters Ezrim are made of the letters you haven't come across yet, Ayin, Shem, Rish, and Mem. But when you add up what their values, you get 620. And the gematria of the word Keser is also 620. Sorry, Keter, I should say. I've got the Ashkenazi pronunciation. Keter, the crown, is also 620. So that's another link between 20 and the kaf and the Keter and the crown and the cup. So this ornament that you're placed on the head, it's meant to also remind us of the 620 letters in the 10 Commandments, and that God crowns, I'm sorry to say, the Jewish nation by giving them the Torah. Not everybody wants this Torah. It's been touted around. We're the only ones that said, yes, we'll have it. And it becomes the raison d'etre of Judaism, really, to follow the 613 commandments and then the 7 rabbinic commandments. So 613 plus 7 is 620. So we play with lots of these ideas around numbers. You don't have to believe in them all or take them all seriously, because you can always make sense out of numbers and letters if you want to. But this is some of the ideas that we will think about when we think about gematria of the kaf and what it means. Kaf is a double letter, like bet, and some of the other ones you've had. It has a different sound with and without the dot. Kaf and chaf. It's the fourth of the 7 double letters. You've come across bet, gimel, dalet. Now we've got kaf, and we'll soon have pay, resh, and tav next semester. Double letters in Genesis are lined up with God saying he saw it was good. He says that 7 times. So God says, let us do this and let us do that. Those are 2 things. And then God saw it was good. And the double letters signify saw it was good. And the kaf comes, it's the 4th of the times that God says, saw that it was good. And what is God seeing that it was good? The 2 luminaries in the sky, the sun and the moon. So Kaf represents this moment in Genesis when God sees that the luminaries are good. It also represents in Sefer Yetzirah, there's two different translations, one in which it represents life and death. That not double letters tend to have these one opposite the other, up and down, and life and death, and good and bad. And this one is life and death. You can't have life without death and death without life, sort of thing. It's always held in balance, in tension. There's a translation, though, that says it's wealth and poverty, but I'm going with the life and death translation. Because of dots, there's substitutions and exchanges that you can have, and because we talk a lot about directions in the temple, up and down and north and south and east and west, in this cosmic temple that is being built out of the letters. You must also understand that what is up and down to us might be the opposite way to someone else. So there's this idea that things exchange and move. So things aren't exactly set in the directions that we always think up and down. There's a wonderful, if you have a moment, there's a very good version of this, The World Upside Down, just over the road at the LSE. This been made by quite a well-known sculptor, and he's just put the world upside down so that Australia is at the top and Britain's at the bottom. The north and south is sort of flipped, and it's a pretty good thing for us to sometimes see things upside down, to see other people's perspective on it. The Sefer Yetzirah also aligns it to space, the letter to space, time, and the body. In some translations, it gives it Venus. Gives the 7 planets that are mentioned in the Sefer Yetzirah. Some translations give it the sun, because obviously it's the letter that's just come up with, and God saw it was good. What was good? The luminaries. So some have translated it as actually it designates the sun, but the translation I'm using, the Aria Kaplan, has it as Venus. It also is one of the ones that donates time of the day, days of the week, time. Obviously, there are 7 days of the week, and there are 7 of these double letters, and so they get assigned days of the week, and Wednesday in this case, and they're also given, it's given to one of the 7 gates of the body, the left eye. And the gates of the body are the 2 eyes, the 2 ears, the 2 nostrils, and 1 mouth. So in the translation I have, it's the left eye, but some people give it the left ear, and some people say no, it's the right nostril. But it's these double letters are assigned gates of the body because of being 7 gates. So I thought I'd bring that to you. So Kaf, this very simple letter, has this lovely shape to it, all encompassing, kol, bringing people into it, but also a crown that everyone's included in this. Well, everyone gets crowned in it. We've all got crowns on our heads, actually. Most of the time we tend to forget that we've got crowns on our heads, and we have this wonderful ability to be more than we think we are. I'm trying to find how to stop the white share, but it's not whiteboard share. Sorry, I'm on a slightly different thing. Computer, so it's quite difficult. I'm just going to finish off now with a short meditation. So if you just want to have a moment and close your eyes, and I'm going to just take you into the idea of relaxing into your body and taking a couple of deep breaths. And just filling your body with fresh air and then letting the air back out and just relaxing down. And I just want you to think about this wonderful, simple cuff, this cup, this palm that holds things, the palm of your hand that holds things and forms this shape that holds things that are dear and precious to you. And think about some of the things that are really dear and precious to you that you hold, that make you really appreciate things you want to keep in your life, that are really dear and precious, that your palm, your hand is holding, this cuff, spoon shape. And maybe you are in that relationship of slightly bowing down to the thing that you think is precious and wonderful, that submission to something that is really wonderful. But at the same time, kaf is the keter, it's the crown. You're wearing a crown. So while you're holding on to something that's very precious, realize that you're very precious. You've got a crown on your head. Think what's your desire, your really big desire. And you're holding all these precious things in your life. They sort of point you to what your desire really is, that you're holding on to the good things that start to inform what your desire really is. And see that those desires are really part of what you desire. What you're holding on to is really part of what you desire. It's precious. It's noble. It's your crown. And take a couple of breaths back.